Hello, welcome back to the studio. Today I have a very special video for you and a giveaway at the end of the video, so stay tuned. In today's video, I'm going to be painting an orange-footed brush fowl, which is an Australian bird, and I'll be using Art Spectrum paints. Art Spectrum is a small Australian art supply company. I've been planning this video for a while, but I am releasing it as an unofficial participation in this month's Animal Artist Collective theme of Australian animals. I am not a member of the Animal Artist Collective, and this is not an official video, so I'm not sure if it follows the rules at all. Again, this is a video I had planned for some time. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lee. I'm a botanical and natural science illustrator based in Kitchener-Waterloo, Canada. On this channel, I share watercolor techniques and tips and some insights into my daily life as an illustrator. If this is content that you're interested in, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know that a few months ago, I traveled to Australia. My main reason for going was that I was attending the Guild of Natural Science Illustrators Conference in Brisbane. However, I also, half-jokingly, talked about how this was my last chance to see some threatened ecosystems and species. That never actually sat quite right with me, and I've since decided to not travel as much. However, I had no idea how prescient that comment would turn out to be. Watching the coverage of this year's Australian bushfires from the other side of the world, I've been struck with how many of the beautiful places that we visited have now burnt down, how many delicate ecosystems ruined. Throughout our trip, I was fascinated by the unique birds we saw across our travels. Towards the very end of our trip, I stopped into a little art shop in Melbourne and picked up a few Art Spectrum paints with the intention of painting one of the most fascinating birds which we'd seen. As we were traveling with carry-on luggage only, I couldn't pick up too many paints, so I decided to choose a very limited selection of unique colors. I picked permanent Indian yellow made with PY153, which is a discontinued pigment, Aussie red gold. Of course, I couldn't leave without an Australian-themed paint. This is a mix of 3 pigments. Cobalt violet, made with PV14, which is a pigment that I don't have in my collection other than this one. And PB27 Antwerp blue, which is a pigment that I'm more familiar with. I thought that this rather quirky selection would be an interesting challenge for painting the bird which I already had in mind, the orange-footed brush fowl. Unfortunately, once I got back and tested out the paints that I'd selected, I found that I couldn't mix a very dark neutral color. All of the colors in this selection, but especially the cobalt violet, are relatively light valued, which means that I can't get very dark tones by mixing them. I try to always include the full tonal range in any of my paintings. So for the purposes of this painting, I decided to include a 5th paint, which is not an Art Spectrum paint. I did want to keep to the limited gamut that I'd selected in Australia, so I chose to include Grey Ochre made with PBK11. This is a paint by my friend Elijah from Sela Paint Company, which is a local handmade paint company. With the addition of the Sela Grey Ochre, I can mix a very interesting moody selection of oranges, greens, browns, and plums, as well as some very, very dark neutrals, and there's a whole lot of texture in these mixes. The most notable thing about an orange-footed scrub fowl is not the bird at all. The most notable thing about an orange-footed scrub fowl is its nest. You see, orange-footed scrub fowl are smallish, chicken-sized birds, but their nests are huge mountains that are taller than an average human. Whereas most birds incubate their eggs by sitting on them and providing body heat, orange-footed scrub fowl take a different approach. You see, these birds don't want to sit on their eggs for extended periods of time. So instead, they build a giant mound. Orange-footed scrub fowl use their large legs to kick back organic material into a giant mountain. They effectively make a big compost pile and then lay their eggs in the middle of that. As the compost heats up in the process of decomposition, it also heats up their eggs, allowing the scrub fowl, once they've built their nest, to just take off. They do not stay to care for their babies. So of course, I couldn't just paint an orange-footed scrub fowl. I had to find a way to incorporate the nest. I decided to use the texture of the paints that I'd selected to my advantage and create a loose sort of background that would hint at the giant mound of earth. I couldn't take the easy way either. I chose to use Canson Moulin du Roi hot press paper. This is a very hard-sized paper, which is to say it doesn't absorb water at all. All of the pigments sit and float around on top. And I thought that this would enhance the textures, which it does. It also makes it a little bit fussy to paint on because, especially with these lifting granulating pigments, every time you put another layer on top, it just lifts the previous ones up. So you'll see that there's a little bit more fiddling that goes on in my subsequent layers. But the first thing I did was to try to let go of my control freak and inhibitions and just put a whole bunch of water and pigment down and let it all mix around. I particularly wanted to put some more water where the bird was kicking back to try to show some of the dust that the bird was kicking up into the nest. Next, I set about painting my bird subject itself. Orange-footed scrub fowl, or Megapodius rinwalt, is a small megapode of the family Megapodidae. Megapodes are medium to large-sized birds, usually flightless or semi-flightless, with large feet and legs. The Latin meaning of megapode literally means big foot. Many common Australian birds are megapodes, including the Australian brush turkey. I've included this small clip of a brush turkey since the footage of the orange-footed scrub fowl that we saw isn't the best. Like its cousin, the brush turkey, orange-footed scrub fowl have very large feet and a tiny little head. Their lower legs are orange and their upper head and neck are a deep blue-black with a brown body in the case of the far northern Queensland subspecies of orange-footed scrub fowl, which is the one I saw. That would be Megapodius rinwalt tumulus. While we were in far northern Queensland, we were lucky enough to see a couple of different mating pairs of orange-footed scrub fowl. Once they build the nest, the female lays her eggs inside and then she takes off, and it's actually the male who regulates the temperature of the nest by adding and removing organic material. Orange-footed scrub fowl are not considered particularly threatened as a species. They are relatively common in their small native area. However, they are limited to the wet tropics. So where we saw them, for example, in far north Queensland, which is the Daintree rainforest. Rainforest used to cover a much larger area of Australia, due to a variety of factors, human and non-human, only a small portion of rainforest remains. And although the rainforest is generally considered relatively resistant to forest fires, unlike many other ecosystems in Australia, this year the Daintree rainforest did burn for 9 days. Rainforests have a sort of self-sustaining ecosystem where they generate their own humidity and their own rain. So if too much of the rainforest does burn down, the remainder could get obliterated and take with it a number of species, including this orange-footed scrub fowl. Although I've been planning this video since my trip to Australia and to far north Queensland, the week that I was planning on recording this video was actually the week when the forest fires started in Australia. And to be honest, I had some real mixed feelings at that point about putting out a video about an Australian species because it seemed oddly opportunistic, and so I've been battling with how to deal with that because I do want to share some of the stuff that I learned, but at the same time I don't want to capitalize on tragedy. I know that, for example, the Animal Artist Collective, who are also putting out videos about Australian animals today, I know that they address this concern by donating 50% of proceeds or more to an animal conservation charity, and I considered putting this piece up for sale and then donating the proceeds, and then I decided on a different approach. Yesterday I made a donation to Rainforest Rescue. Rainforest Rescue is Australian based, but they operate both in Australia and abroad, supporting conservation efforts in rainforests around the world. Instead of selling today's piece and donating the proceeds, I am going to give away today's piece. Just a few days ago, I reached 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and I'm just blown away by the support that I've had. So I thought that this would be a perfect chance both to celebrate and to give back a little bit and use my platform and voice to create something positive. So the rules of this giveaway are extremely simple. If you'd like a chance to win this painting, just leave me a comment down below and tell me what you are doing to make the world a better place. Whether you're working for conservation efforts or protesting climate change or building your community or fighting for human rights, we can all take small steps. On February 15th, which is my birthday, I will draw one name at random and mail out this painting. This giveaway is open to anyone all around the world. If you do win this painting, I hope that it'll inspire you to continue fighting for what's important to you. So once again, if you'd like to win this painting, just leave me a comment down below and tell me what you are doing that helps make the world a better place. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you'd like to be notified when my next video comes out. But don't worry, none of that stuff is necessary to enter this giveaway. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.